Good evening, Kaja, Bryx, Racjonalista.tv. I would like to present a special guest today, András Pintér, who is the Vice President of the Hungarian Skeptic Society and also the host of the European Skeptics Podcast, and who will be participating in the European Skeptics Congress in Wrocław in September. Hi András, how are you?
Hi, thanks. I'm very well, and I'd like to greet your audience as well. Hello, I'm very happy to be on your show.
Could we start asking you about the situation in Hungary from the skeptics' perspective? I don't mean necessarily the political situation. I mean more what you as skeptics find most challenging right now in your country, because of course skeptics in various countries face other challenges, right? So how would you define the situation in Hungary? What's the biggest issue for the skeptics?
Why? Well, in the last couple of years, it's become a bit difficult to differentiate between the political goings-on and those things in the pseudoscientific side of things, because there is a huge overlap in recent years, but mostly what we're struggling with are things like alternative medicine. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that actually I know for a fact that that is very prevalent in most of the European countries these days, and homeopathy is spreading on a wider and wider scale. The other thing is energetics. So there are a lot of people trying to provide some alternative energy solutions, but not necessarily those having any scientific structure or scientific background, but those alternative ways of providing energy that are scientifically absolutely senseless, and they don't make scientific sense.
Could you tell us like more about that?
0 point energy and different kinds of perpetuum mobiles, and I don't know what the plural of that is, but yeah. So I think you know what I mean.
Yes. Wow. Didn't think of that. Could be so problematic. I mean, so popular. I wouldn't actually imagine. So the energy. So there are actually problems with energy. Is it very expensive?
Well, not necessarily. Or, to be honest, I have no idea what energy costs in other countries across Europe. But what I know is that we have a couple of people who are in the forefront of those alternative solutions to household energy consumption. And they are mostly bogus claims that they make. And some of them are very smart, actually. Some of them require a real good amount of consideration and proper going through the different mathematical equations as well, in order to find where they go wrong with their ideas. But mostly we do know that when they contradict such fundamental laws of physics, like the conservation of energy, that is something that feels a bit fishy right away. But yeah, there are a couple of those, and there are those special healers who provide their treatments through TV on television. Actually, there is this guy who what he basically does is nothing else but providing surgery through TV. Like he mimics some kind of surgery or massage, and expects the listener or the audience to believe that the person who he's doing this massage kind of thing on virtually is now healing. So it's
Wow.
it's a weird thing to do.
Yeah, that's completely. I don't even know what adjective to use to describe it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Unbelievable. Well, and I know that you are also the head of the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia project for Hungarian language. Is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't go as far as to say that I am the head of that, because it's going without a head now, to be honest. When I started working working together with this team that Susan Gerbic, the fantastic Susan Gerbic, runs, it's an international team of Wikipedia editors who would like to do something about the skepticism-related Wikipedia pages. And they want to improve these pages, and they want to do it in different languages. And they provide lots of training as well. They provide you the means to learn how to edit properly and how to adhere to the basic guidelines of Wikipedia and how Wikipedia should be edited. And when I joined in 2014, we had about 7 strong group of people from Hungary who wanted to join in, and I became the coordinator of that group. And but since I started the European Skeptics Podcast with 2 other guys from different countries in 2015, I've not had much time to edit Wikipedia. I did some today actually, but that's very, very occasional that I get to do it.
And could you tell us something more about the podcast?
Well, the podcast is a project that we started because we realized it actually started. We are now preparing for the 17th European Skeptics Congress in Wrocław, but it came about at the 16th European Skeptics Congress in London 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it was 2 years ago. Unbelievable. And almost 2 years ago. And we've had a couple of discussions about what's wrong and what's not necessarily satisfactory in the way we communicate with each other, and that we only meet one another on a biannual basis, and it's not enough. We need to work on our communication. We need to get or put together a kind of communicational hub that we can use, and we can spread the word across the continent, because there are lots of brilliant skeptical groups. There are not necessarily called skeptics. There are rationalist groups, there are humanist groups, there are skeptical groups in different countries. They probably work together or mostly find a way to work together. But what doesn't happen is we don't know what's going on in our neighboring countries. So, for example, I have no idea what's going on in any of the countries that Hungary have a common border with. And that is ridiculous, because we are in this together. We should be in this together, and we should help each other with our ideas, with our efforts. If someone has already gone through something, we should know about it, and we should try to use it so that we don't have to go through the same processes again, but learn from the others who have already done that.
Of course.
And
yes.
And we wanted to put together something, this communicational hub, if I may, that's what we wanted to provide. And I came up with the idea, and I approached Jelena Levin, who's originally from Latvia, but of Russian descent, but she lives in London now. And we met through Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia, and also Pontus Böckman, who is a board member of the Swedish Skeptics, which is a huge, a massive organization with thousands of members, which is amazing. and the work they do is amazing as well. And I approached them with the idea. They said yes, and I was very happy about it. And then a couple of months later, we started the podcast. And it started out as a bi-weekly podcast, but we soon realized that there is so much material to talk about and to cover that we wanted to provide more. And although it's a huge effort and it takes a lot of time and energy that we have to dedicate to this, we decided to go for a weekly circulation. And we kind of alternate between an interview episode and one that covers news and has other segments that are a bit different and they are somewhat similar to some other podcasts that we have we use or listen to out there, like the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe that we brought a couple of ideas from, or you probably know other podcasts like Skeptics with a K, or the fantastic Canadian podcast called The Reality Check. And but we try to provide a mixture, and what's different from all those other podcasts out there is that we have a clearly European focus. We focus on European topics and issues and European people. Sometimes we do make interviews with people who are not from Europe, but even their activism or their skeptical activities have a European angle. So that is very important for us.
And what would be the most common topics that you cover in the interviews or in the discussions?
Well, with regards to the interviews are there for a special purpose, which is to make it known for everybody who listens to the podcast that there are amazing efforts across Europe and the world with relevance to European skepticism that we need to talk about and they should know about. And those efforts usually are not known because of the lack of a European focus in other podcasts, which I don't blame them for, because for an American podcast, it's absolutely obvious that they have enough to cover anyways. And sometimes they do talk about some European topics, but still, when you look at the market, so to say, of skeptic podcasts, what you see is that there is the US, there is Canada, which is not widely talked about, but still, there is Australia, and there is the UK. Not in this particular order, but if the weight of it I try to measure, it's like there is US skepticism, there is UK skepticism, and of course there is also Australian skepticism, and there is something called the Canadian skepticism, but that's it. We don't know on an international scale. We don't know what's going on in Germany. We don't know what's going on in Poland, in the Czech Republic. We don't know what's going on in the Nordic countries. But then when we start to learn about them, then you realize that it's fantastic, the efforts, all the work that you do, and most people out there don't know about it. And that's just something that we wanted to change. And this is the focus. So we don't necessarily focus on topics. We focus on countries. We focus on people. And we try to make it known to everyone that there are those people out there and there are those efforts out there. And when it comes to the news, we are not very picky. But what we try to provide is an oversight of European skepticism. So we try to cover different countries. When we have news items, we usually have news items from late activities or late events from at least 5 or 6 different countries across Europe. And that's something that we're very proud about.
Well, it sounds really amazing. I need to check your podcasts after this interview.
Please do.
it's a really important job actually, because it's true that we don't communicate enough within Europe. The skeptics, the rationalists, the humanists, all the secular movements. I think we are much stronger than we realize, and I mean, we would be much stronger if we actually started really working together. So I hope this is the beginning. Also, the fact that these congresses happen in various countries gives a chance to meet people, to discuss topics. And in fact, this very year, Wrocław was also hosting the General Assembly of the European Humanist Federation. So
heard that.
We are becoming, the city this year, special European focus, which actually for us right now in the difficult situation which we have politically, it's also important. I wonder if there are other organizations in Hungary that your society cooperates with, and if you could tell us a little bit more about the society itself, like how big it is, because we also don't know almost anything about Hungary. I mean, in the sense of the skeptics, rationalists, etc. So if you could tell us a bit more, I think our audience will be very interested in learning that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things and one of the reasons why we started the podcast in the first place. So not specifically Hungarian skepticism, but that we don't know anything about other skeptical societies and organizations. And for that matter, I just recently learned about your organization, and I yesterday met a guy who talked about you, and I mean you personally, Kaja. And is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Kaja. Okay. And then I mentioned him that I was going to do this interview, and he said, "Oh wow, fantastic! What a small world it is." And it is, and we still don't know about each other. So, getting back to your question, the Hungarian Skeptic Society is not a huge organization. It was founded in 2006, and by just a small group of people, and it grew through the years to about 100 members, and we have about 8 or 10 very active members who do the main share of the work that we do. And what we do is we organize talks, we organize events, sometimes even Skeptics in the Pump like events, and occasionally we do put together conferences, but it's really very occasional. It's not an annual or a biannual thing that we do. We would like to, and we've been talking about this for a couple of years actually. Sometimes we do demonstrations of different scientific issues. We do participate in actions like the 2011 Homeopathy Nothing in It campaign. You probably remember that one. And in 2010 we organized the 14th European Skeptics Congress. So yeah, those kinds of activities. We do have a regular show on a monthly show on a radio channel, which is we discuss different topics and try to provide a skeptical angle. What else? Yeah, that kind of things. Sometimes we do clash with companies. We do cooperate with different other organizations, like there is one that's called Átlátszó, which translates in English into transparent, and what they provide is, or try to provide, and they work towards is transparency of different not only governmental bodies but different projects, different funding projects from the European Union. So lately what we've done with them together was we found out that a European funding project was made available by the Hungarian government to a company that basically use the money to build a perpetual motion machine, which is well, when we're talking about €1 million, that's not the best way to spend all that money. And we came out with a press release, and we provided some details together with this organization. So yeah, that is one of the most recent cooperations with other organizations as well. And I personally have connections to the Hungarian Humanist Association and Hungarian Secular Society, but that's a personal connection, not an organization level kind of connection.
And is the Hungarian government supporting any kind of pseudoscience on its own? Like in the US, currently there is a problem that Trump is against the global warming, for example. So is there something similar going on in Hungary, or you're lucky not to face this?
Well, there are a couple of issues. One of the things is that we have a constitution that was put together by the current administration in 2011, and without consulting any other parties across the board, and it actually includes a segment which states that we have the right to be free from GMOs. So it's in our constitution. That's one of the things. But I do know that it's a European level issue that basically the EU allows that to happen, which is basically nonsense, because scientifically it doesn't make sense to ban all that. That is one thing. That funding issue that I just mentioned earlier, that is one other thing. The energetics is a field that is becoming hotter and hotter in Hungary, because we do have the options of alternative energy, real scientific-based alternative energy solutions, but the government tries to put them aside, and mostly because of their ties to the Russian government, and they have plans that are going forward now with the extension of our nuclear power plant, instead of trying to. So that generates a bit of a debate, and the problem with that is I'm not saying that expanding a nuclear power plant as opposed to trying to provide a bit more room for alternative energy I'm not saying it doesn't make sense science-wise or scientifically, but what I'm saying is that should be a debate, and whenever there is a scientific issue that the Hungarian government comes across, there is no debate. They decided. It's not, their decision is not based on the scientific facts. Mostly, it's based on what the prime minister thinks or what their advisors, his advisors, tell him to do. It's very difficult. And there is one other issue that is one of the most recent ones, which is they are building a new wing to one of the most prominent medicinal institutions and medicinal training institutions in Hungary, which is called the University Semmelweis University. I don't know if you know who Semmelweis was, but he was a Hungarian doctor who basically came up with the idea of sanitation, and so it's a very important thing, and that university is one of the most prominent ones in Hungary, and now they are using about €5 million to build up a new wing, and that wing will host an extended Chinese traditional medicine institution, and part of that money will go directly to that institution, and that is just something that we cannot not oppose. It's we have to oppose that because it's just ridiculous, and especially when we consider that healthcare in Hungary is in a terrible shape now, and when they come up with things like that, and they start funding institutions that are basically propagating bullshit, pardon my French, but yeah, it's like going back to the era of Mao Zedong. It's not something you want to see.
No, that's really horrible. Well, we in Poland had a problem recently, well, a couple of years ago, with a few universities inviting a psychic for lectures. There is a famous psychic who is apparently helping the police in investigations related to lost people, and universities invited him for lectures. Obviously, the Polish Skeptics Club and the Polish Racjonalist Association, we started a campaign against that, because I mean, a psychic giving lectures at the university.
Oh yeah,
but we do not have, as far as I know, maybe I'm not aware, any department at the university that would be teaching pseudoscience yet. Although I'm quite sure that at certain universities, some subjects taught during, for example, psychology, might not be exactly scientific based. So that's another problem, right? Which I suppose happens everywhere, depending on who's the professor. But well, Chinese medicine, that's new.
Yeah, but we do have two different organizations, two different universities in Hungary. One of them teaches homeopathy as a course, and the other one has an actual institution which is called the Complementary and Alternative Medicine Institution. So we do have that problem already. Yeah.
Wow, that's bad. And how is the situation in Hungary with the church? Because in Poland, that's one of the biggest problems, that they are actually supporting a lot of pseudoscience, and they have a very strong position, the Catholic Church, when it comes to all kinds of political decisions, etc. Do you have also this kind of problem in Hungary, or it's not that relevant?
No, it's not that much of a problem here. Politically, they do get a lot of room and they do get a lot of power these days, but we haven't come across anything that is coming from from the Catholic Church in particular. What we've had a clash with is people coming from different religious backgrounds and forming the new team or group of the creationists. Mm-hmm. So there is a creationist group that has not been that active in the last 3 or 4 years, probably because the leader of that group had a problem with his own church. And he was what is it called? The Krishna.
The Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So the I don't know the English name for them. So the Krishna believers, whatever. So that was so the Hungarian government took away their church status for a while, and that was a bit of a struggle for them. So I'm guessing that was because of that. But beforehand, about 8 or 9 years ago, they regularly gave lectures at university buildings against evolution and denying the fact that of evolution, and trying to state that it's just a theory, and there is a growing scientific theory that contradicts evolution, and the intelligent design movement, what is basically what basically it is, and but we haven't had a problem with them in the last couple of years.
But
it was much earlier than that.
Because I would expect creationism to arise from either Christianity or Islam, and in this case, it's actually the Hindu creationism that's bothering you in Hungary, right?
Yeah. And I think it was because of that particular person, the leader of that group, not anything else. The Catholic Church does not bother dealing with scientific issues as of late, and the Muslim people are not very frequently found in Hungary. So most of the people, and especially those who come in as refugees from war-struck countries, they don't want to stay in Hungary. They don't stay in Hungary if they can move forward. And immigration is not very strong. It's not very much of an issue here in Hungary, although the Hungarian government does make it an issue, but that's politics. It's not. It doesn't have much to do with science and religion. It's.
And how big is the Hindu group?
I don't know. It's a small group, actually. It's not. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people. We're talking about a really small group who have funds and who have a bit of power, but that's about it. Basically, they don't do much. That would lead to a clash with science. This is probably the only issue where we had a clash with them, because normally we don't have a problem with religions as skeptics. Whoever wants to believe something, we like to criticize them, but as an organization we don't. We only criticize the actions and the statements that contradict science. If there is a clash with science, then we come into the picture, but otherwise we just leave them alone. And that's our policy. Mm-hmm. So that we leave that to atheist groups and humanist groups and secular groups, which I am very much interested in personally, but not as the organization of the Hungarian Skeptic Society.
I understand. The last thing I would like to ask you is what skepticism means for you personally, and why you have become a skeptic?
Well, skepticism means just an important way of thinking for me. So obviously it comes with now that I'm part of a movement and I'm involved in a movement now on an international level, thankfully, it means a bit more than that. So it's not just a way of thinking, it's become a lifestyle for me. And I don't mind that. I really like that. I love the people that I get to work with and I get to meet through this, through trying to be active in this movement. And that is something I really enjoy. And how I became a skeptic, now that's a different issue. It happened about 20 years ago when I was very much of a believer of all things supernatural and extraterrestrial, and I was fascinated by UFOs. I even told that story on several occasions, that I even tried to communicate with aliens. So I read it in a book which is called The Atlas of the Supernatural, and that was a book that I read from cover to cover, and I found a couple of very fascinating things, like mentioning one particular star from which there might have been a signal that researchers caught at one point, and what I did was I climbed up a tree. I found that star on the skies, and I started flashing a torchlight towards it so that they can see me. It took me a bit late, a while to figure out that physically it doesn't necessarily make sense, because that little torch will probably not reach that, the light from that torch will probably not reach that star. But that came with me starting to attend a bit of a study circle at the local astronomical observatory at my hometown. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really learned about astronomy and how we deal with things that we see on the skies, and how we spot a UFO, and that fascinated me even more. And that's how I learned bit by bit what science means and how science works and what the scientific method is. And then I started attending the Hungarian Skeptic conferences that took place in my hometown, luckily, in the very building where the observatory was. So organized by members of that study circle, mostly. And that was basically what changed my way of thinking. And I became a skeptic who wanted to find out everything about what fascinated him. And this is where I ended up.
Wow, that's a great story. I must say, I would love to meet the aliens myself too.
Oh yeah, I still want to. I would be thrilled, but I'm a bit skeptical.
Yeah, well, the chances are not very high. This is a special moment when you realize that the science actually provides you with much better, more interesting, more beautiful answers than everything else. So I had the same experience in this regards, and I'm great that I'm happy that it happened to you as well. And actually, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you today. And likewise. I'm looking forward to meeting you in Wrocław in September, when hopefully we will be able to host you in our studio in person for another interview.
That would be fantastic. Okay. Yeah, I'll give it a short talk about the need for a European level organization to get stronger and to get a real grip and try to do some lobbying activities as well at the European level. I won't have much time, but I'll try to provide some examples as to why it's important and how it can work. And I'll also host a panel discussion at that very day later on. So we probably will have a chance to catch up with each other. I would really love to meet you in person, and we're looking forward to that.
That's great, and I really think it would be amazing if we could start working on a European level among skeptics, humanists, rationalists, all of these groups, because we share so much in common.
Yeah, and although there is the European Council of Skeptical Organizations, but it's a bit of a dormant organization now. It's an umbrella organization, and it's really dormant now. And the reason for that is because everyone does it in their own free time, and it's on a voluntary basis. And when it's on a voluntary basis, you cannot expect people to put in more than they can. And
I exactly know what you mean.
Yeah, we all know. Yeah, I think because we're, as I said earlier, we are all in this together, and we do it the same way. And you know what? Those people out there whom we are trying to contradict and fight, because even though I'm a bit of a pacifist, it still is a fight. We're struggling to do and to achieve something as skeptics. By something, I don't mean a career, but some results. And it's difficult because those people out there, those people do this for a living. They do their own. They propagate their own bogus claims. They provide bogus treatments and everything of that kind for money. And we dedicate our free times just like you guys do. It's unbelievable. When I heard about what you guys do and that you try to interview everyone who's going to be involved in the next European Skeptics Congress, that's amazing, and it's a hell of a lot of work. I do know that for a fact. So, well, I'm just lifting my virtual hat to really appreciate your work.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and
thank you.
See you soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.